spotlights shine them bright. Gonna have a brand new show tonight with glitz and glam on the marquee. Perhaps a Tony nominee. Stars beam brightly, see them glow. Sell out nightly, SRO. It's time to applaud the Broadway Beat. Stars beam brightly, see them glow in the footlights of a show. Life is sweet on the world's most famous street.
Tickets, please.
Take a seat
Cue the band.
and tap your feet to the rhythm of the Broadway Beat. The Broadway Beat, Broadway Beat.
Happy New Year. I'm Richard Ridge, and welcome to Broadway Beat 2008, our behind-the-scenes look at the very best of what the New York theater has to offer. The film version of Stephen Sondheim's Tony Award-winning musical Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, which is directed by Tim Burton, has opened nationwide to much critical success and has been receiving a multitude of award nominations. So this week we thought we'd look back at this landmark musical and follow the show's journey from stage to screen. But we start things off at the opening night celebration of the 40th anniversary production of Harold Pinter's classic play, The Homecoming, which has taken up residence at the Court Theater. We caught up with the show's renowned director, Daniel Sullivan, and his truly remarkable ensemble cast, which includes Ian McShane, Raoul Esparza, Eve Best, Michael McKean, James Frayne, and Garrett Sachs. Set in North London, The Homecoming concerns the ultimate dysfunctional family, presided over by its patriarch Max, played by Ian McShane. Living under his dilapidated roof are his younger brother Sam, played by Michael McKean, and two of Max's sons, Lenny, the town pimp, played by Raoul Esparza, and Joey, a boxer in training, played by Garrett Sachs. Betrayal, seduction, and tensions begin to flare with the arrival of Max's eldest son, Teddy, played by James Frayne, who returns home after 6 years with his new wife, Ruth, played by Eve Best.
How long you been in this house?
All night.
All night? I'm a laughing stock. How did you get in?
I had my key.
Oh, and who's this?
I was just going to introduce you.
Who asked you to bring tarts in it?
Todd?
Who asked you to bring dirty tarts into this house?
Oh, listen, don't be silly.
You've been here all night?
Yes, we arrived from Venice.
We've had a smelly scrubber in my house all night. We've had a stinking pox-ridden slut in my house all night.
Okay, what are you talking about?
I haven't seen the bitch in 9 years. He comes back without a word. He brings a filthy scrubber off the street. He shacks up in my house.
It was a play, and we may have talked about this before, but it's a play that frightened me upon reading it. It very much disturbed me, and I wanted to direct it just to figure out why. You know, it's one of those plays that, and I think audiences very often leave with that same feeling of I don't quite know where I am. I don't quite know what happened. I know it was wonderful, but what was it? You know, and I think that sort of trying to track that down and figure out how do you work on that was one of the reasons I wanted to do it.
Maybe they're over talked about the challenges. I mean, Harold himself, I think, would say. I mean, I've done his plays before. I've done The Caretaker on TV. But Harold would say, I think, you know, there's a couple of good jokes in there. Go out and don't take it seriously and enjoy yourself. And the play will take care of itself if you have a good director. And I think we had a terrific director in Dan Sullivan, who, you know, is the, I mean, I may drive the bus, but he's the route master, you say, who tells you how to drive it. Did a great job. I've enjoyed it enormously.
I remember I came downstairs and I made Jessie put her feet on a poof. What happened to that poof? I haven't seen it for years. Eh? Anyway, she put her feet up on the poof and I said to her, Jessie, I got a feeling our ship is going to come home.
Well, you know, there are a lot of basic gags in this, but the audience laughs at different places at different times because there's a combination of uneasiness and tension, of intrigue, of stress, which sort of breaks into comedy all the time. But every time there's a laugh, Pinter just kind of closes it down. So it's a really interesting dynamic, but people have a really good time. So
Let's talk about the challenges of doing Pinter.
I read somewhere that someone said it's kind of like tightrope walking, but it is sort of tense. It's interesting. You have to kind of get this balance between the tension and the menace and the humor. But, you know, it's like doing any other play, to be honest with you, mate.
The challenge, I think, with Joey is to find the human qualities that are there, and not because it's very easy to go into the land of Laurel and Hardy. I mean, because it's built so comedically well, and I think intentionally so. But then to find the emotional through line, and I don't know, maybe Pinter would argue with me about that, but I felt like that's been the journey for me, is to find the attachment to Emily, to Ruth. And that's what takes me through the piece, really.
I'm rather worried about the carpet. It's not me, it's my father. He's obsessed with order and clarity. He doesn't like a mess. So, as I don't believe you're smoking at the moment, I'm sure you won't object if I move the ashtray. And now perhaps I'll relieve you of your glass.
I haven't quite finished.
You've consumed quite enough, in my opinion.
Well, Pinter changes every night you do it. Pinter's all about what you don't say. And Pinter's all about this sort of poetic rhythm that's happening, you know, in the dialogue. But it's also really funny in a really sick, hideous way. And that's fun to do because you get to do a joke and then you get to cut it. And you get to sort of screw with the audience for a little bit, and then you get to make them laugh, and then you get to drop it out from underneath them. That's been a real learning experience, and I think we've got a lot further to go. Our whole preview process was cut short because of the strike, so we've got a lot of learning and growing to do still. And Lenny is a character who never tells the truth, ever. So I'm always on the edge of a joke and always on the edge of a laugh, and that's kind of a fun thing to maintain for 2 hours. It flies by like a rocket.
You know, it's interesting for us to watch because I thought I knew the play until I saw this production.
Really?
And there were so many underpinnings to. It's like you say, what you don't say and what we see from what you don't say is all there in this production.
That's really great to hear. Thank you very much. I think we're trying really hard not to muddy it up. Just keep it clear and keep it fun. It's actually a very funny play. It's just a very sick play. And people come away sort of disturbed by it and thinking about what it means. And I hope that it kind of resonates in people's lives beyond just the evening of theater. It's one of those masterpieces. You go, what was that? What was that? Like, it kind of like changed everything when this one came out. So it's interesting to see how it plays now.
Well, he's really kind of simple for a complex character, but he is sort of a man who has stayed above this odd human cesspit, you know? And he did it by joining the serving classes. You look at this guy, he really is, he's a servant. And there is something about that which makes him all the more, it's almost his salvation. You have a feeling that if he didn't have a job that called upon him to be very normal, that he maybe would have wound up like everyone else. But I think he's a man with a good heart and just in the wrong family.
For me, I find it a real challenge because she doesn't say anything. And so it's all, everything that's happening with me is to do with what's being not said and what's being felt and what's being literally, felt between people, and that's very exciting. It makes you feel very, I don't know, alive, sort of almost like we're animals. I think Pinter's, this is my first experience of having done one of his plays, and I think he is an incredible writer. And what I'm just learning all the time, every time we do it, it's different every night. And I feel there's so long, I've got a long, long way to go with this character, and only just started. But it's just really exciting every night, chipping away, and all of us, everybody's working every time. So, tonight
the glorious ensemble. I mean, to watch all of you up there is incredible. It's like watching a tennis match.
Oh good. Well, that's nice. But that's how it feels, actually. I feel very, very safe and excited to be with whoever I look around and I think, oh, I'm playing with you now. That's great. And now I'm playing with you, and that, and I think we all trust each other a lot, which is wonderful.
I worked as a butcher all my life.
The chopper and the slab. You know what I mean, the slab? The chopper and the slab? To keep my family in luxury. Well, my mother was bedridden, my brothers were all invalids. I had to make money for the leading psychiatrist. I mean, I had to read books. I had to be prepared for an emergency at every stage. Crippled family, 3 bastard sons, slut bitch of a wife. Don't talk to me about the pain of childbirth. I suffered the pain. I've still got the pangs. When I give a cough, my back collapses. And I've got a lazy, idle bugger of a brother who won't get to work on time. The best chauffeur in the world. All his life he's been sitting in the front seat giving lovely hand signals. Call that work? This man doesn't know his gearbox from his arse.
The film version of Stephen Sondheim's landmark musical Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, which is directed by Tim Burton, has opened nationwide. It is receiving critical acclaim and a multitude of award nominations. It stars Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd, the barber with a vengeance, and Helena Bonham Carter as Sweeney's amorous accomplice, Mrs. Lovett, who makes the most diabolical meat pies. The original Broadway production, which was a multiple Tony Award winner, including Best Musical, starred Angela Lansbury and Len Cariou. The recent Broadway revival, which was conceived and directed by John Doyle, starred Michael Cerveris as Sweeney. So enjoy our behind-the-scenes look at Sweeney Todd from stage to screen.
All right! You, sir? No one's in the chair. Come on. Sweeney's waiting. I want you, bleeders.
In the 1970s, a young actor and playwright named Christopher Bond inserted into this story elements of the Count of Monte Cristo and of the Revengers tragedy, so that for the very first time, Sweeney was motivated instead of just being a kind of villain, which he had been for 100 years.
Mr. Todd?
At your service. I saw this play, and I thought it would really be fun to scare an audience and see if you could do it while people are singing.
All right! You, sir? No one's in the chair. Come on. Sweeney's waiting. I want you, bleeders.
It's a story about revenge, and it's about how revenge eats itself up.
Now, Mr. T, surely one's enough for today.
I really don't think, and it was very nervous making to decide you were going to do a stage play about a killer and about revenge. And of course, because Sondheim writes so romantically, it's also romantic, romantically a huge romantic score. But today, if you ask me, that's what I thought then. What I know now and think today is it's our Porgy and Bess. It's our century's Porgy and Bess. It's Sondheim is our Gershwin, if you know what I'm saying. And is it his masterwork, like lots of people say? I don't know. One question I never can answer honestly is, which is your favorite Sondheim? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. The first preview, I memorize very fast. It's not any big talent. It's just something that happens. I can't explain it, and I never try it. It just it goes in and very fast. So by the first preview, I had the score memorized. So I put a big piece of white paper on my music stand so the television backstage, because it wasn't as sophisticated as now, could pick me up because they were taking cues off of me. The first time Len slit a throat, a great big blob of stage blood came and went poof right on the white paper and stayed there. I left it there the whole run.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
He served a dark and a hungry god.
He served a dark and a hungry god.
To seek revenge may lead to hell, but everyone does it and seldom as well as Sweeney. As Sweeney Todd. The demon barber of Fleet Street.
I mean, it's not just about this show. I mean, I've been doing this kind of work for 10, 12 years now, and that all grew out of, I've always worked in poor theatres that had no money. You know, I designed Sweeney Todd myself for that reason. And that's the same thing about the whole business of the actors making the music. And it's been fascinating to now see it meet in the commercial world. You know, I could have come here and asked for anything I wanted, and all I wanted was 10 good people who could do it. And so I'm excited by that, and I'm thrilled that we've held on to what we have, which is really, really wonderful.
It's like nothing we've ever seen before. I mean, to star in a Sondheim show and then to play a Sondheim show at the very same time. What's that been like?
It's been incredible, and it's because of that man over there, John Doyle. And he said something interesting to someone in my dressing room about learning the music, and he said, well, of course they could learn the music, they were actors. He said musicians wouldn't necessarily memorize it. And Michael and I came to it a week late because we did the Ravinia Festival, we did Steve's Anyone Can Whistle, and I found it harder to learn the music that I didn't rehearse in the scene than the music that I rehearsed in the scene with. So it wasn't hard, it was part of the scene. It was part of the scene. And there was a lot of practice, you know, we had to practice.
Because for us, it's very hypnotic. We've all seen Sweeney Todd done so beautifully before, but to watch 10 of you, it's like watching a great tennis match of everybody playing off everybody else, and no one ever lets their guard down.
It is the most incredible ensemble I've been in since my days at Juilliard, and it's a better ensemble than that.
It's sort of like why we got involved in theater in the first place.
I keep saying that. It's a theater lost. It's a theater remembered, actually. It's a theater misplaced, and John has brought it back. It's like, you know, I'm so happy to be a part of this production.
Well, Sweeney Todd was the first Broadway show I ever saw. It was on my first trip to New York with my family, and so I knew of Sondheim through my father, and had heard a lot of Sondheim musicals on recordings, and but this was going to be my first chance to ever see something on Broadway, and it was one of the last previews, I guess. It was in March, I think, maybe of that year, and it was. We got tickets, my dad got tickets for us, and we sat in the next to the last row of the then Uris Theater, now Gershwin, which, if you know it, of course, means that you're about 1.25 miles from the stage. But, you know, I still so vividly, I can physically recall walking into the theater and just the huge scale of the space, and then that set that was dramatic before anything even happened on it. Just looking at it was, you know, made you uneasy and anxious and anticipatory. And then when the guy came out and started playing the organ, I was sort of halfway there already. And then when the whistle came and, you know, scared the shit out of everybody in the audience, I was completely hooked. And then Len comes out, and Len Cariou comes out, and I was riveted to him for the entire performance, and so thrilled because I'd never really thought that I was still at a place in my life where I had done a lot of theater growing up because my father would be involved in theater at the university or in community theater, and so I did a lot of plays, and I would do musicals sometimes. All, you know, non-professional stuff and summer stock things. But I was in high school, and is that right? Yeah, I was in high school and doing theater and stuff there too, but still not convinced that this was what I was going to do for a living, and certainly didn't think that musicals would be the way that I would go, because I just didn't think I was a musical type performer. And then I saw this, and I saw Len Cariou, and he's a terrific singer, but I perceived him to be an actor who sang. And what I was so enthralled with was that aspect, you know, that there was this fully formed character, you know, multi-layered, funny, terrifying, smart but blinded, and, you know, so complex and so multifaceted actor working on stage and in a musical. And that was what made me think, well, maybe, you know, someday, somewhere down the line, I could be a part of that world. You know, maybe there is a place for odd kids like me in musical theater. And
have charity toward the world, my pet.
Yes, yes, I know, my love.
We'll take the customers that we can get.
I born and know, my love.
We'll not discriminate great from small. No, we'll serve anyone, meaning anyone, and to anyone at all.
Here we are, popped out of the oven.
What is that?
It's priest, have a little priest.
Is it really good?
So it's too good, at least. Then again, they don't commit sins of the flesh, so it's pretty fresh.
Awful lot of fat.
Only where it's at.
Haven't you got poet or something like that?
Now you see the trouble with poet is how do you know it's deceased? Try the priest.
Well, it started with the Angela Lansbury version all those years ago, and I've seen every other version, but really didn't think about it as a movie until Tim Burton described to me one day his incredible passion. He'd seen it years and years ago in London. He was a student, art student in London, and he saw it as a young man and saw 12 performances of it.
No matter what we changed in it, I had my own barometer, at least for myself, to say, I wanted to, even if we changed something, to try to be as true to the spirit of it. Because that's why I wanted to do it. That's why, I loved it so much and why I wanted to do it. So a lot of things did change, but I always tried to ask myself, is it remaining true? Try to get as much emotion and spirit into it that the show has, that the original and all his work has. So the great thing about him is that he was very, he's extremely talented, extremely intelligent, and very knowledgeable about films. So I felt basically, only support from him that way, which again was very important to me.
It's a perfect fit, and his enthusiasm for the piece. That's the important thing. It really, you can see in this movie how the director really likes the story.
I was in London to get the rights to do Noel Coward's plays called Suite in 3 Keys, which we did in America under Suite in 2 Keys, which starred Jessica Tandy, Ann Baxter, and Hume Cronin. And this agent kept pestering me to come out to Stratford East outside of London to see the show called Sweeney Todd. Well, one night I had enough time and I went out and I saw the straight play with kids 6 years old, people 60 years old, eating hot dogs, having popcorn, and I thought, gee, that would be wonderful in New York. So I paid $250 for a year's option, brought it to my partner, who I wasn't sure was going to like it, and of course he loved it. After I had obtained the rights, we got a phone call from Stephen Sondheim saying that he too had seen it in London and would we allow him to write the music. And of course we fell all over each other accepting it. It took Steve a couple of years to write it, and actually we were all set to go into rehearsal with Len Cariou and Angela Lansbury, and we had to wait for Steve Sondheim to finish the score, but that's very typical of composers. I was surprised by the tremendous success of Sweeney Todd, which incidentally is now going to be made into a movie, because the Schubert organization told me I was crazy to do the show, and it made me very nervous. But when we got such talent as Angela Lansbury, Stephen Sondheim, Hal Prince had directed, I felt pretty secure.
I'll be honest. It was a hard job. It was 5 years of really hard work because I have such respect for the Broadway musical. I wanted to try to capture the essence of that in a cinematic way. The first challenge is it runs almost 3 hours, and it's very presentational. So the language of Broadway, the language of theater, which can involve a chorus, speaking to the audience, a lot of recitative, choral singing, really don't necessarily apply to the language of cinema, because movies, I think, are about this. I think they're about psychological reality, they're about close-ups, they're about following the emotional lives of the characters. They're very small in a way. So where on the Broadway stage you can have a performer scream at you, in movies you have to have them whisper to you because they're right next to you. So the process of working on it primarily was taking the majesty and sweep of Stephen Sondheim and Hugh Wheeler's Sweeney Todd and bringing it down into something smaller and more psychologically true for the camera.
Nothing's gonna harm you,
while I'm around. Nothing's gonna harm you, no sir, not while I'm around.
What do you mean, someone bad?
Demons are prowling everywhere nowadays. I'll send them howling, I don't care, I got ways.
Absolutely. I mean, from our very first discussion, Steve Sondheim and I discussed the fact that we needed to bring the show down. It was simply too long. And the first thing we discussed were cuts. So here's me going into Stephen Sondheim's living room, and the first thing I have to talk about is, here's the songs I want to cut from your great show. Here's the songs you labored years over writing that I, in a pen stroke, want to eliminate. To my shock, he was absolutely generous about cutting songs, and he understands the process. The last thing Stephen Sondheim wanted was a filmed recording of a stage play. He wanted this to become its own animal. He wanted a motion picture. And he's been very generous with his time and with his genius in terms of helping shape the screenplay. I am absolutely indebted to him for every piece of work I did, because his DNA is on every frame of the movie of Sweeney Todd. Let me rephrase that. Stephen Sondheim's DNA is on every frame of the movie Sweeney Todd.
Tim and I had spoken about doing the film, and he asked me, you know, do you think you can do it? Do you think you can sing? And I honestly, I mean, the answer that I gave him was, I don't know. You know, I'll try. I definitely do my best. I'll see, you know, if I can. And
Mrs. Lovett, I wanted to be her since I was 11, and I went around apparently in Mrs. Lovett hairdos. Mum and Dad were big fans, and they brought back the score, and I remember sitting in my drawing room, looking at the score, going through the lyrics and listening to it on the record, and I just got completely hooked on the music.
There'll be lots of people getting killed and loads of blood spraying all over the place, so if that's your thing, you're going to have plenty of it.
All right, you, sir, how about a shave? Come and visit your good friend Sweeney. You, sir, too, sir, welcome to the grave. I will have vengeance. I will have salvation. Who, sir? You, sir? No one's in the chair. Come on, come on. Sweeney's waiting. I want you, bleeders. You, sir? Anybody? Gentlemen, now don't be shy. Not one man, no, nor 10 men, nor 100 can assuage